Hello, welcome back. Today we're talking about Gene Key or Gate 40. I'm in the process of moving, heading down to Mexico, so if it sounds a little echoey, that's why. Um, One thing that I'd like to mention is I just started a new podcast called It's About Magic. It's kind of a conglomeration of all of me. One day I will be having guests on there, and I'm sharing it here on YouTube as well. So if you would like to check that out, you can find that in my video lists there. So let's start with Gate or Gene Key 40 today. We're going to be transiting this from August 29th to September 3rd. And on the human design side, this gate is known as the gate of restoration or loneliness, or in the I Ching, deliverance. And you'll find gate 40 in the will center, and it's connected to the emotional solar plexus through gate 37. This is tribal circuitry and is the channel of the bargain. It's, again, we're learning how to value ourselves and others so that we can create agreements that include everyone. This transit for us is learning how to value yourself enough to retreat from your community so you can restore and replenish your resources, while taking responsibility for your own care and not giving away your power. This is often on the shadow side, you'll see the martyr, where you're compromising your own needs, especially because you feel like you don't value yourself or you're lonely, and then you blame others for not knowing what you need. And you're trying to prove your value by overdoing it. In counseling and family systems theory, we often call this overfunctioning. We overfunction, we give too much, we people please, and eventually we end up resentful and burnt out. The full expression of this is knowing and honoring when you need to retreat, how you need to care for yourself, and then also allowing others to find their own way, right? Just because you're supporting people, sometimes people need to find their own way. That is how we cultivate resiliency as human beings. If you think of a little baby when they're 2 years old or younger and they're just starting to stand, the baby needs to hit his head on the side of the table in order to learn that that hurts. If you are always protecting someone or doing for, they don't actually learn. The Gene Key, on the Gene Key side of this, we have the Shadow of Exhaustion, the Gift of Resolve, and the Siddhi of Divine Will. So the Gene Key for this is that whenever you're aligned in your actions, you will always be fed and supported by source energy. You will have the energy that you require if you are in alignment. But it's when you force, when you live from your shoulds, when you're people-pleasing, over-functioning, that depletion occurs. So on the shadow, we see this playing out through exhaustion. And this is using willpower. Remember, this is in the will center, so using willpower to push through, forcing yourself, which will cause depletion, bitterness, frustration, anger, burnout. And burnout is very prevalent in our world right now. Richard Rudd says that when we're burnt out, it causes premature aging, disease, and exhaustion. And on a more specific level, I often see this play out. I have seen it play out for myself, and I see it play out for clients in poor relationships, meaning they're not fulfilling relationships, you're compromising yourself, anxiety, depression, and general unhappiness. And this really happens when we force ourselves to complete tasks without adequate support or resources. And resources is energy sometimes, right? We see this a lot. People who are working jobs that drain them. They're in work that is draining, or I've worked for companies where if you are expected to do more than what the value in return is given to you, that can be very draining. And when we're in this place of exhaustion, it's like your walls go up, right? Your walls go up, you might start feeling lonely, isolated. You might even start just denying what your own feelings are because you're so conditioned to just push through or put other people's needs before your own. And this can look one of two ways. We have a lack of boundaries, which in itself is a form of manipulation. Oftentimes, and I speak as a recovering people pleaser, oftentimes people who identify as being a people pleaser, people who identify as being highly sensitive, and so they do for others, or they would take the brunt of something for others, or not show up because they care about others. This is true. And when you're a people pleaser, when you have a lack of boundaries, you actually get something from that. You get to feel safe, you get to feel seen, you get to feel valued. But what can happen with the lack of boundaries is then you go into martyrdom. And it truly is up to you to sit in your discomfort of putting up a boundary. If you are not someone who holds boundaries very well, when you begin to practice holding boundaries, it will feel uncomfortable simply because you're not used to doing it. You can also see this shadow playing out in contempt, meaning you will see people manipulate others for their own benefit. The gift of resolve is all about the art of saying no. That's where boundaries start, when we say no. And what I love to say is that no actually gives us space for the yes. If you say no, even if it's like, no, not in this moment, I need time to think about it. If you have a tendency to continue over giving, that no is so powerful because it like just gives you this energetic field to really sit with whatever someone is asking of you, or what an option for what you to do is, right? And no is one thing you can do with no is just go stand in the mirror and say no. Practice saying no. You'll be amazed if you struggle with boundary setting that no could be one of the hardest words for you to use. What you need to know is that no is giving to yourself. When you say no to someone else, it's actually a gift to you because you're giving yourself space. Resolve is also about knowing when to relax, when to not do, when to be still. And this is a big challenge because our whole world is all about doing. It's a doing culture, which, I don't know, the circles that I find myself in, I know this is shifting. I don't know how quickly because I'm biased. In this place of resolve, you're still probably going to work hard, right? But you're not exhausted, you're not burning out because you're not giving up on yourself or forcing yourself, which fundamentally just drains your subtle energies. You're working hard because it feels right to you. And one of the ways that we care for ourselves, and one of the ways what happens when we say no, is that it actually causes us to be on our own. We start to be by ourselves, even if it's just for a moment. But that creating space, that being in your own aura, is actually what replenishes you. So if anything through this transit, see where and how no feels to you. The Siddhi is divine will. And this takes us again, the Siddhi, I feel like they're like, they're leaps. And we go from the shadow to the gift, and that's not a far leap. But then to the Siddhi, sometimes it's quite a big leap. What's that word? I can't remember the word I'm thinking of right now. But divine will is, from my interpretation, literally surrendering yourself to whatever wants to be guided by you. So you literally are walking with divinity throughout your days. Nothing is led by ego or shoulds or other people. It is simply you're walking the path of divinity. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to showing you Mexico when I'm on next, and filming these a little bit ahead of time. I tend to film these before. That's just best for my energy that way. So thank you again. I always appreciate reading your comments and just all your support. Thank you so very much, and have a most beautiful day.